Hey guys, Dean here, and in today's video we're going to talk about how you can achieve financial freedom under 30 years old, but this is also going to be really beneficial for people of all ages above your 20s. So this is going to be great for people in their 20s trying to set themselves up for financial freedom in their 30s, but also for people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, any other age beyond who want to start having a better strategy of saving money and investing and having a much easier future in their lives. So this is going to be useful for everyone, but also mainly for people who want to start things along, get things moving, and get to that point a lot quicker, especially if they're young and they want to enjoy their life. So let's begin. So what is financial freedom? So financial freedom is the ability to choose how you can spend your time without having any limits based on your income. So this could mean if you're working a low-paying job or a 9 to 5, you're tied down and you can't really make your own choices because you have basically a contract with that company and you've devoted yourself to it. So the choices are based on what your boss orders you to do and obviously what you owe that company. So there's a lot of reasons why you can be limited, which is why we're working towards basically living a life of more freedom and obviously a life of abundance through being able to do what we want to do. So this is being independent from a standard job which may tie you down and prevent you from doing certain things which you aspire to actually get done. So this gives you the freedom to live your life without any kind of financial fear that you will basically fail. That's the basic description of what financial freedom is, why it's useful and where we want to achieve it, and why not having it may hinder your life. So let's move on to how you can set yourself up to success and start getting the ball rolling. So first we're going to cover the section of just generally paying off debt, because debt is something which can hold us back greatly. So paying off high interest debt is the thing which we should focus on first. Now this includes things like credit card debt, which could hurt your credit score if left unpaid, and obviously it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run if you don't pay it, because it's just going to build up with interest and it's like a snowball that keeps rolling and getting bigger as it collects more snow. So this is something you want to diffuse and get out of the way as soon as possible. This is exactly the same in terms of student loans. If you're in college or university, you may have obviously borrowed money from the government in order to get yourself through the teachings. So paying this off as soon as possible is really important because you don't want to leave it till later when it might become a problem or just kind of a bit of an agitation to you. For an example, in some countries, you don't actually have to start paying this back until you make over a certain threshold or when you choose to do it. But it's always best to get it done as soon as possible if you have the option to do so. Remember, we don't need any distractions here when we're moving forwards with this plan because we want to optimize the amount of time it's going to take us to reach this goal. Now, after paying off your debt, remember borrowing money also to finance a more upscale lifestyle is not going to pay off any dividends in the future. This is basically regarding people who use credit cards to live a lavish lifestyle, but then later they get in debt or they have to pay back a lot of money, which is inflated in relation to what they originally borrowed. So don't think that you can cut corners by borrowing lots of money and then worrying about it later, because it's just going to put you in a really depressing state and it's just not going to be good for you in the long run. Now, debt can be leveraged in many positive ways, and credit cards are really great to build up credit score, for an example, but keep your eyes on the main goal we're focusing on here. That's something for another time and for another focus, and that's not what we're trying to achieve right now. So next up is getting the income that you need. So this is a super important section and for many reasons. So let me go a little bit deeper into this. First of all, if you don't have a job, sometimes you may need to work a 9 to 5 for a few years to generate some form of income or wealth, or to have any kind of savings if you want to be free from the shackles of doing that forever in the future. This is going to cause a lot of uncomfortability. You're not going to be comfortable doing this, and it obviously might not make you very happy for the short term, but if you don't have any wealth coming in, sometimes this may need to happen, or you may need to do this to actually get some money, because we need some money first of all to have in our savings, which we can then spend on wise investments later. So if you're working a 9 to 5, you may not want to do it, and many of us really don't like that, but for the short term it may be positive for now to pay off later. Now, if you have a degree or some kind of higher level of experience, if you've been to university or had a higher level of education in college, this can obviously land you a much better job, and what we want to do at this stage is look for the highest paying job which we can get with our degree and what's available to us to basically earn more salary. So the higher the salary job we have, the more money we wish to save and what we have available to invest, which means we will achieve achieve this goal of financial freedom much sooner. Now, there is one thing important to note though, that just because you have a higher paying job doesn't mean you might have this money available to save or invest with. Now, there could be many reasons for this. First of all, obviously you're going to get taxed more, so you're not going to get that full figure in your bank account anyway. But also, if you're one of the people where when you make more money, you just spend it as it comes and you upscale your lifestyle in relation to the new amount of money that you're bringing in, you'll probably still have only the same amount left as you did before. So this is something which I would recommend really keeping an eye on, which is why we're going to focus later in the video on living more frugally and structuring the incomings and outgoings of the money that we have, because this is really important to avoid this kind of behavior because we want to save as much as possible. So next is savings, okay? So saving each month is what we're trying to achieve here, and this is really important. So saving and investing are the two key main fundamentals which is going to allow us to reach this goal, because the normal salary coming in isn't going to amount to much money in the long run even if we save it, so we're going to have to use it in a smart way. So assigning a percentage of your monthly salary or income each month in savings or investing is very advisable. A good ballpark figure which I'd recommend, which I started to do originally, was around 20%. This is because it's doable and you're not going to spend over your means or spend too much that will put you in a bad situation. Raise this or lower this, of course, depending on the speed of completing your goal that you wish, and also what's more sustainable in your lifestyle and based on how much money you spend in each month. Of course, this is why we want to reduce our money spent each month to have more available to invest, but just make sure you don't basically get in a bad financial situation by trying to invest or save more than you can do. This is of course why you want to also look at your incomings and outgoings. Adjusting your current lifestyle may be necessary if you're outspending your means and you're not saving enough to create wealth for you later. So just see if there's anything which you're spending too much money on, any subscriptions you're not using, any money you can save, and try and adjust this and save a bit more money, and maybe just generally reduce spending. You can spend more money later when you have that financial freedom and wealth accrued, but this is all part of the being a little less comfortable for the time being to be more comfortable later mindset. So it's going to pay off in the long run. So this means you may need to live more frugally currently or save more money into your savings, which will pay off later. Now remember, if you have anything saved, even if it's a small amount, you're still doing pretty good, because annual statistics do show that most people in their 20s, late 20s and early 30s are basically still in minus because a lot of them haven't paid off all of their debt. The main figure is obviously their student debt. So if you have money in the positive range rather than the negative, you're basically technically ahead of everyone else statistically. Aim to save a full year's salary by the time you're age 30 if you can. This may not seem like much, but it's a pretty cool ballpark figure to have in mind. Now the next point is making smart investments, okay? So investing is all about basically making your money work for you rather than working for your money. So this is obviously a very popular phrase, which is basically making the concept easier to understand. It's also better than putting money in a low interest savings account where you're not going to get much of a return, because it'll generally generate a better return yield over time in the future if you actually invest it into something like stocks, for an example. Investing is generally always better than saving, as you just generate a better return. I'd recommend my videos, how to invest in index funds for beginners and how to invest in cryptocurrency for beginners, to learn how to do this wisely. All investing obviously carries a risk, and crypto a higher risk than stocks, but if you want to learn and kind of have an idea of how to start, these are probably the two best videos I have on how to do this. Now remember, if we're trying to achieve this by our 30s, then investing is vital and very necessary, but not just investing, making smart investments rather than just random investments will benefit you over the long run. So make sure to do your research and not invest in things which are generally thought of as extremely volatile or risky if you can help it. Acquiring enough money for savings or investing is important, but it needs to be put into something that will provide you with long-term growth. Index funds like the S&P 500 is great for this. Of course, the stock market is seeing a little bit of an overturn recently due to trying to recover from the government stimulus and the whole pandemic problems which changed the market, but it will recover in the long run, and I would still advise investing in index funds. Perhaps putting some kind of percentage into crypto like Bitcoin or Ethereum might pay off too. Personally, I'm just invested only in Ethereum right now, but I do like Monero and Bitcoin too, so these could obviously be good positive coins that will pay off in the future. So the next point we're going to go over is creating some kind of budget, right? So budgeting is very important, but if you don't want to make a budget or you don't like the idea of it, at least just monitor your bank statements to show your monthly outgoings and incomings and compare how much you're spending and saving in relation to your total income and what your salary is. This just gives you an idea of how sustainable your current spending habits are. So if you don't want to use a budget, you at least need to do that to get an idea of how much you're spending, saving, and what you have left available. A budget is basically just used to stay in your means and make the best decisions. Some people don't actually need a budget if they're just very frugal and wise, but for most people it's very beneficial to have one. Obviously when you're younger and you have more risk opportunity to make mistakes or take risks in business and just general finances, you don't really have to worry too much, but a budget can still be smart. And if you have a family, it's very crucial to have a budget because you're thinking about people more than just yourself. The budget just basically shows you where your money goes and it lets you allocate the best way to spend it. You can set up a simple budget on free software like Google Sheets online or more premium software like Microsoft Office using Excel. It's very easy to set one up and you can download templates online where people have already laid out basic layouts for you just to fill in and have your own budget, just as simple as that. There's obviously videos you can search too on how to make a budget if you want to learn how to do it and you have no skill in the software. Structure your budget with essential monthly expenditures and subtract them all from your monthly income. Remember, the remainder figure from here is obviously what you can then spend on things like groceries, gas, investments, etc., whatever left you have to spend it on and what you need to save it for. In terms of living, an emergency fund is also very important. So it's always smart to create an emergency fund even when you're trying to save money or invest, because you don't really know what's going to happen, and this just kind of sets you up for failure in a positive way. So this is basically a chunk of cash which you kind of keep in limbo in some kind of separate account or in a safe allocation which is going to be left untouched. So if you're getting your first apartment, this is really positive to have some money set aside to save. For an example, if you get behind on rent or if you lose your job, then you have some money left to actually spend on rent and kind of get back on your feet. Usually if you have like 6 to 8 months of rent saved in an emergency fund, this is basically something which I'd really recommend. But in terms of a general emergency fund, just having money that's ready to be used in a crucial or dire situation is really advisable. For an example, if you need emergency repairs on a car that gets broken down, or if you need some health care when you're abroad and you don't have insurance, this will prevent losing a huge chunk of money from your main account and set you up if future things do go wrong, which is inevitably going to happen at some point, whether it's really bad or just something small. And then we're going to go back to just generating wealth, this is the part which I'm mainly focusing on, the side hustles and passive income stage. And basically this is considering making a side hustle or starting a new kind of business to earn some kind of additional income. If your job currently isn't bringing in enough income to reach your goal, consider supplementing your income with additional earnings by creating some kind of side hustle. This is basically a way to bring in an additional stream of income from setting up a side business, doing some kind of service, or just working a second job if you're old school and you don't mind doing that for the short term. I have a video on side hustles and passive income streams that you can generate, businesses you can start from home, and I'd really recommend watching that if you want to create multiple income streams to have money coming in from more sources. Remember, relying on one income source might not always be the best in the long term, especially if it's a normal job you work in, which you could potentially lose for many different situations. Most millionaires and billionaires in the world have money coming in from more than one source. That's why they have artificially inflated money in regards to everybody else, because they don't just have money coming in from one thing. Whether this is multiple products from their main business or multiple businesses sprouting off from their empire, they're creating money from many different means. This is something which everyone can do if they have the time, the investment, and basically the will to do so. If you want to join the elite in the future and just worry less, consider working on some kind of side project or business in some form. Like I said, this is something which I'm still working on, but it's something which is really crucial to the future. Learning about finance is also very important in this journey. Now you can do this through many different means, so becoming financially literate is something which is really important if you want to take all these steps the right way. Now you can do this by reading books on personal finance. Now you can listen to them as audio books too if you don't have the time to read them. I personally have a Kindle, but I don't always have time to use it. I mainly just use it when I'm traveling on the plane. Now, there's books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Intelligent Investor, or Think and Grow Rich, and these are pretty good recommendations. Now, you kind of typically have to listen or read these books multiple times to actually get information from them, because most of the time you'll only retain around 10% of the book that you read, and then you'll feel like you haven't learned anything from it. But as long as you read them multiple times, they can actually give you some pretty useful information. The Personal Finance Reddit board is also a really good forum to learn a lot of information. That helped me a lot when I was kind of learning all this stuff, and it helps me a lot in double checking all of my research and fact checking before I make these videos. It's a really good community where other people have tried and tested a lot of their methods, and it's just good general historical advice that seems to work. It's easy to digest information, and it's very simple to read, and it's well structured, so I'd go ahead and check out that information too there. Now, if you don't have time to read long monotonous forum posts or read books, you can also subscribe to this YouTube channel and watch my videos on all these topics. Now, the next thing I'm going to cover is investing in yourself. This is something which everyone seems to always be talking about nowadays, whether it's making content on YouTube or video forms or just starting some kind of business. Investing in yourself, especially and mainly if you're still young, where you have room for risk, is really important, and it's building up for the future. Especially if you don't have a family where the risk is going to negatively impact them, and you have some kind of security blanket like having a family that you can stay with at home if things go wrong, then you can invest in yourself and take a few risks, and it can pay off for the future. Remember, if you want to be financially free, building your own business, if that's something that you want to do, you will have to kind of have that risk stage where you put it all on the line and take some risks at first for it to actually pay off later. So if things do go wrong, that's kind of just the starting stages, and it's not the end of the world. Remember, this is easier to recover and get out of some kind of rut if you're young and you have more room for risk. Now, I would recommend not taking as many risks if you do have a family, because you do need to provide for them. So don't do anything stupid, because it can be a lot harder to recover if you have no kind of security blanket. Now, investing in your passions or business endeavors and your future is probably the best course of action when you have the opportunity to do so. This could be investing in good camera gear and microphones and equipment for YouTube, like what I'm using, or product inventory for businesses like setting up a dropshipping business or whatever kind of avenues you want to go into. You're always going to have to put some money in to a business or for your own personal hobby which you want to turn into a moneymaker for it to actually pay off. So investing in yourself is something you will have to do at some stage, and it is usually a worthwhile investment. It will pay off dividends in the future much later, and especially if it's to set up a side hustle or one of your passive income streams too. You will lose money in the short term, but it's going to give you a lot more money in the future from that initial investment. So the last point which I'm going to cover in this video is setting up active goals. So this could be annual goals or short-term goals. I'm more of an annual goals person, but a lot of people benefit more from short-term goals because they're more easily attainable and there's less time taken to actually reach them. So if you're a person which long-term goals don't work for, breaking that down into small increments and splitting it into short-term goals could be more useful and more achievable for you. For an example, some people want to lose weight super quick and they're not really in it for the long run, and short-term goals or a much quicker method might work more for them. Remember, this isn't a sprint or a race, this is a marathon. So I personally basically just write down a list of annual goals at the start or the end of the year, and I don't always achieve all of them, but if I achieve a good deal that I can tick off the list, then I can move them forward to the next year if I didn't achieve some of them, and then continue working at them. This always keeps you goal driven and makes sure you have something to keep your eyes on. If you want to be a high achiever, this is kind of crucial, because otherwise you'll just forget what you want to do, or you'll kind of settle and just coast. This also works with finances and money goals. For an example, if you wish to earn a certain figure in income in a month or a year, or reach some kind of business milestone or savings figure or investment feat, then this is a good way to first record it, will it, and then also achieve it. So that's all my tips on how you can achieve financial freedom before you're 30 or in your 30s or later in life if you kind of feel like you might have missed the boat already with it, which of course you haven't, as long as you follow some of this advice and key fundamentals. All the resources which I've referenced will be in the description below. It took me a long time to research a lot of information in this video and also acquire all the knowledge over a few years based on experience and trial and error and failure. So make sure to like the video and subscribe if you want more useful financial videos and advice and travel videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.